Hey, this is Wamba TV. It is something I want to talk about. It is something going on in Uganda that the international media has chosen to keep a deaf ear and a deaf eye about. Did you know that we are having presidential elections in Uganda in January of 2026? What does it look like the international media has given a deaf eye to Uganda this time around? When you look at 2021, the vibe was so high. CNN, BBC, Al-Jazeera, all the media houses were here in Uganda to cover the elections, the presidential and parliamentary elections in Uganda. But it is so much that has changed this time around. When we look at 2021, there is so much that happened. The coming of the National Unity Platform, it was a new political party, and everything that happened around that time. A renowned musician, Bobby Wine, who later changed to Robert Kyagulanyi Ssentamu, was elected the presidential candidate for the National Unity Platform in 2021. And we see everything that happened then is totally different from what is happening at the moment. If we compare this election with the one that happened in 2021, we can see a very different picture. The arrests, the killings, the demonstrations, the violence that happened in 2021 cannot be seen anywhere. I guess that could be the reason as to why the international media has kept a blind eye on Uganda this time round. Let me just give you a brief background. Presidential candidates in Uganda were nominated on the 23rd and 24th of September 2025. And you saw a very big rally that happened on the 23rd of September at Kololo Independence Grounds. That was the nomination rally for President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni. It was highly attended and the vibe was extremely high. We see that on the 24th of September 2025, Robert Kyagulanyi Ssentamu, the presidential candidate for the National Unity Platform, was also nominated. And later on, we see a very big nomination rally that happened in the outskirts of Kampala, Natete. And we see a very big crowd that attended that nomination rally. So much happened on that day, and there was no violence that was seen anywhere. Between 23rd and 24th, there were very many presidential hopefuls that were denied nomination, and the Electoral Commission says they didn't satisfy the requirements of being nominated as presidential candidates. And among these is the Ecological Party of Uganda, whose hopeful presidential candidate was Honorable Muhammad Nsereko, who is at the moment the Member of Parliament for Kampala Central. He alleges that he submitted all the requirements for being nominated as a presidential candidate, but he was told on the last minute that he hadn't submitted all the necessary credentials for him to be nominated. The Electoral Commission insists that he did not qualify because he did not submit all the required credentials that were required of him. On the other hand, we also see that Mr. Magezi David Williams, who in this case was the only youth who had offered himself to compete in the presidential race, was also denied the nomination. He also alleges that he submitted all the necessary credentials for him to be nominated. But the Electoral Commission too insists that he did not qualify. On another hand, we also see John Katumba. John Katumba, if you can remember very well, was part of the presidential campaign that happened in Uganda in 2021. Much as he did not get the opportunity to win the race, he participated and he showed a very good potential to compete. This time round, he had offered himself for yet another time. He also says he submitted all the necessary credentials and he wasn't nominated too. What is different in this race is this. We have very old political parties in Uganda. For example, the Uganda People's Congress, the second oldest political party in Africa. This time round, they did not front any candidate in this presidential race. Surprising, right? On another hand, we see the Democratic Party, one of the oldest political parties in Uganda, also did not front a candidate in this race. On another hand, recently there has been a split in the Forum for Democratic Change, one of the biggest opposition political parties in Uganda, especially in the last years until the national platform came. The rift that happened in the FDC brought about two factions. One faction remained the FDC, and the other faction, led by retired Colonel Dr. Kiza Besigye, went and formed the PFF. This new political party, PFF, chose not to front a candidate in this race. The reasons are not clear, but one major reason would be its principal, retired Colonel Dr. Kiza Besigye, is in prison, was arrested on allegation of trying to overthrow the government, and yet its president, Council Honorable Elias Lukwago, the Lord Mayor for Kampala City, at the moment he chose to run for the mayoral race instead of the presidential race. In this election, on another hand, what is peculiar about it is, for the very first time in so many years, we see a presidential race with no single female contestant. Since migration into the multi-party system, this is the only presidential campaign in which there is no single independent candidate. These were the officially nominated presidential candidates. 8 of them. One is Yoweri Kaguta Museveni. He is the presidential flag bearer for the National Resistance Movement, and it is the ruling party. Then we have Robert Kyagulanyi Ssentamu. He is the presidential flag bearer for the National Unity Platform, which is the biggest opposition political party in Uganda at the moment. And in the last elections of 2021, Robert Kyagulanyi Ssentamu was the second. And we see a very big contestation this time around. We also see Honorable Nandala Mafabi. Honorable Nandala Mafabi is the presidential candidate for the Forum for Democratic Change. He is currently a member of parliament and also has been serving and is still serving as the Secretary General for the Forum for Democratic Change. In this race, we also see General retired Mugisha Gregory Muntu. He is the presidential flag bearer for the Alliance for National Transformation. This is also one of the political parties that fell out from the Forum for Democratic Change. In other words, out of the Forum for Democratic Change, we see the creation of PFF, which is led by Honorable Elias Lukwago, the Kampala Mayor, and also the Alliance for National Transformation, which is led by retired General Mugisha Gregory Muntu. On another hand, we see Honorable Mubaraka Munyagwa. Honorable Mubaraka Munyagwa is the presidential flag bearer for the Common Man's Party. The Common Man's Party is a new political party that was formed this year in 2025, and it also presents serious competition as we talk at the moment. Among the nominated candidates, we also see Elton Mabirizi. If you remember very well, Elton Maviriz was a presidential candidate in the 2006 presidential race, and he was on an independent ticket. So there is so much to look at in the presidential elections in Uganda. One of the major things we look out to this time around is there is no single youth in this race. We all know that Uganda is the most youthful country in the world. Over 77% of the Ugandan population of over 46 million are youth. And what is peculiar about this election is there is no single youth in this race. Surprising, right? What is happening at the moment? Just like I said before, there is so much with this presidential race which is completely different from all the other presidential races. So far, there has not been any single recorded death. There has not been any single recorded demonstration. There has not been any single documented confrontation between opposition political leaders and the police. There has been total peace so far in this election. I don't know the cause of this, but people are saying that the political parties this time round are trying as much as possible to avoid confrontations with the police, whereas others are saying the police is trying as much as humanly possible to avoid confrontations with politicians. It is alleged that the politicians have chosen to adhere to all the electoral laws that were put in place, and the police has done its total best in following all the necessary laws that were passed before this campaign started. That is where we are so far. It is understandable for the international community not to be interested in this campaign because majorly what happens is these international media houses are only interested in things that make news. And what makes news to the international community? Violence. It's evidence that there has not yet been any single spark of violence since this campaign started, and that is the reason as to why these media houses have chosen not to turn up. So, for now, that is the update so far from Uganda. Subscribe to this channel so that you can be informed about everything that is going on in Uganda around politics, social, religious, and also the economic aspects of Uganda. Thank you, and thank you so much.